The antiseptic smell hit me before anything else. That unmistakable hospital scent, bleach, illness, and desperation, a combination I'd grown to despise over the past 3 weeks. I paused outside room 317, my hand hovering over the door handle as if it might burn me. Through the small window I could see him, Marcus, my husband of 11 years, propped up against pillows that made him look smaller than I remembered. He was staring at his phone, the blue light illuminating the gaunt hollows of his cheeks. The notification light blinked repeatedly, messages he was sending that weren't being answered. I knew who they were for. I knew she wasn't coming back. When I pushed open the door, his head snapped up, hope flashing across his face before recognition settled in. Not her, just me, Eliza. My name sounded like a prayer on his lips. You came. 3 weeks since the accident. 2 months since I'd walked out of our home. 6 months since I'd discovered the truth. He reached out a hand toward me, tubes trailing from his arm like desperate tendrils. Please, he whispered, his voice breaking. I need you. She's gone. And just like that, I was back in our bedroom, finding her earring in our sheets, his guilty eyes confirming what I'd suspected for months. I didn't move closer. I know she's gone, Marcus. That's the only reason I'm here. 18 months earlier, to us, Marcus said, raising his champagne flute. The crystal caught the candlelight, sending prisms dancing across our anniversary dinner. 10 years and still your smile makes my heart skip. I clinked my glass against his, the ring he'd given me that morning, an upgrade from my modest original wedding band, catching the light. To 10 more, I replied, meaning it with every fiber of my being. We'd met during our senior year at Northwestern, both of us ambitious and driven. He was studying finance. I was in journalism. We were the power couple everyone envied. Marcus with his strategic mind that could dismantle any financial problem. Me with my ability to weave words into stories that moved people. After graduation, we both landed jobs in Chicago. He joined a prestigious investment firm. I worked my way up at the Tribune. 3 years later, we married in a small ceremony by Lake Michigan. By our 5th anniversary, Marcus was made partner, and I had published my first book, a collection of investigative pieces that had earned me a reputation as someone who could uncover the truth no matter how deeply it was buried. Our 10th year of marriage arrived, with all the markers of success: the brownstone in Lincoln Park, the summer home in Michigan, the mutual funds, and the respect of our peers. We'd chosen not to have children. Our careers were our babies, we used to joke, and that decision had served us well. I have news, Marcus said, reaching for my hand across the table. His touch was warm, familiar. Holcomb is stepping down at the end of the quarter. I squeezed his fingers. And they're considering you for managing partner? His smile was the one I'd fallen in love with, confident but with that hint of vulnerability that only I got to see. Not just considering. It's mine if I want it. Oh my God, Marcus. That's incredible. I was genuinely thrilled for him. This was what he'd been working toward since we met. There's a catch, he continued, his thumb tracing circles on my wrist. It means more travel. A lot more. New York, London, maybe Tokyo. I nodded, processing. We can make it work. I'm between book projects, and the Tribune would let me work remotely some of the time. Something flickered in his eyes, so brief I almost missed it. That's what I love about you, Liz. You're always all in. That night, we made love like we were still newlyweds, hungry and passionate. If I'd known it would be one of the last true moments between us, I would have memorized every touch, every whisper, every promise murmured against skin. The changes were subtle at first. Marcus's late nights became later. His trips grew longer. Our Sunday brunches, a sacred tradition since we'd married, were increasingly sacrificed to conference calls that couldn't wait. When he was home, his phone was a constant companion, face down on every surface. New client, he'd explain when it chimed for the 5th time during dinner. High maintenance, but worth it. I believed him because I'd never had reason not to. 3 months after his promotion, I found the first receipt, a dinner at Alinea, Chicago's most exclusive restaurant. 2 champagne cocktails, the tasting menu, a $400 bottle of wine. Business dinner, he said when I casually mentioned it. Courting a potential investor. I believe that too. By month 4, Marcus had lost weight, his always trim frame becoming sharper, more defined. He bought new suits, upgraded his cologne, started working out with a personal trainer. The Tokyo office is big on appearance, he explained, just trying to fit the part. Month 5 brought a smudge of lipstick on his collar. Not my shade, too coral for my skin tone. Probably from Janet in accounting, he said with a laugh. She's a hugger, and you know how these women in the office are with their makeup. I almost believed him that time. Month 6. I found a hotel key card from the peninsula in his jacket pocket. A hotel 10 minutes from our home. A jacket he'd worn on a night he'd told me he was in New York. I didn't mention that one. Instead, I started paying attention. The way he angled his phone away when texting. How he suddenly needed to shower the moment he got home. The mysterious weekend conferences with no published agendas I could find. The credit card charges at jewelry stores that produced no gifts for me. As an investigative journalist, I'd built my career on uncovering what others wanted hidden. But when it came to my own marriage, I'd been willfully blind. The morning I decided to follow him, I told myself it was for an article, a piece on Chicago's financial elite and their midday habits. In reality, I was tracking my husband like he was a subject for an exposé. He left his office at 11:30 a.m., not his usual lunchtime. I watched from across the street as he checked his watch, straightened his tie, and ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture I knew well. He walked 3 blocks to a cafe I'd never heard him mention, one of those trendy, hidden spots that didn't even have a sign. And then I saw her. She was beautiful in that effortless way that takes tremendous effort. Cascading dark hair, slim figure in a perfectly tailored red dress, legs that seemed to start at her collarbones. When she saw Marcus, her face lit up with the kind of uncomplicated joy I hadn't directed at him in months. When they kissed, not a friendly peck, but the kind of kiss that belongs behind closed doors, I felt physically ill. I ducked into a doorway as they walked past, her hand comfortably tucked into the crook of his arm like it belonged there. I followed them to the peninsula, watched them walk together through the lobby toward the elevators, saw how his hand rested possessively on the small of her back. I didn't need to follow them upstairs. I already knew what I would find. That night, I waited up for him. He came home at 10 p.m., claimed he'd been in meetings all day followed by client drinks. "You smell like her," I said quietly. He froze in the act of loosening his tie. "What?" "Her perfume. It's all over you." I stood up from the couch. "Do you even shower after you've been with her? Or do you just come home to me like that?" "Eliza, I don't know what you're—" "I saw you today." My voice was steady, surprising even me. "At the peninsula with her." "Who is she, Marcus?" The silence stretched between us like a living thing. "She's no one," he finally said. But his eyes said otherwise. "Don't?" I held up my hand. "Don't insult me by lying now. I deserve at least that much respect." He sank onto the edge of the couch, his shoulders slumping. "Her name is Vanessa. She's a consultant we brought in for the Tokyo expansion. And how long has this been going on?" He looked away. 4 months. I did the math. Right after his promotion, right after our anniversary. "Do you love her?" The question escaped before I could stop it. His hesitation was answer enough. I packed a suitcase that night and went to stay with my friend Sophia. The following weeks passed in a blur. Lawyers, mediators, division of assets. I moved into a small apartment in Wicker Park, threw myself into a new investigative piece, and tried to understand how the person I thought I knew better than anyone could have become a stranger. Marcus called daily at first, then weekly, then not at all. I heard through mutual friends that Vanessa had moved into our home, our brownstone, with the kitchen I had designed and the garden I had planted. That she'd redecorated, painting over the sage green dining room I'd lovingly chosen with a stark white. That she wore my upgraded ring on her right hand as a gift from Marcus. Somehow, those details hurt more than the affair itself. 2 months after I left, the divorce papers were ready. All that remained was for both of us to sign. The call came at 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, that hour when nothing good ever happens. I fumbled for my phone in the dark, heart racing with that middle-of-the-night panic. "Is this Eliza Kincaid?" An unfamiliar voice, official sounding. Yes. My voice was thick with sleep. "This is Nurse Parker from Northwestern Memorial Hospital. You're listed as the emergency contact for Marcus Kincaid." My stomach dropped. "What happened?" "Mr. Kincaid was in a serious car accident. He's in surgery now. The doctors thought you should know." I sat up, suddenly wide awake. Will he? "The doctors are doing everything they can. Would you be able to come to the hospital? There are some decisions that may need to be made." I was still legally his wife, still the person who would decide his fate if it came to that. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. The waiting room was purgatory, that liminal space where time stretches and contracts unpredictably. I sat with my hands clasped so tightly my knuckles turned white, wondering why I was there, why I still cared what happened to a man who had betrayed me so completely. 4 hours later, a surgeon in blood-spattered scrubs approached. "Mrs. Kincaid?" I didn't correct him. "Your husband survived the surgery. He had significant internal bleeding and a collapsed lung, but we were able to stabilize him. He also has a broken leg and several fractured ribs. But he'll recover?" The relief I felt was confusing. Barring complications, yes. "He's in intensive care now." The surgeon paused. "There was a passenger in the car as well." "A woman?" I knew before he answered. "Yes. She sustained only minor injuries, a concussion and some lacerations. She's been treated and discharged." Of course she was fine. Of course she had walked away. "Can I see him?" The doctor nodded. "He's still unconscious from the anesthesia, but you can sit with him if you'd like." Marcus looked small in the hospital bed, surrounded by machines that beeped and whirred, keeping him tethered to life. His face was bruised, a cut along his cheekbone stitched with precise black threads. A tube ran from his mouth to a ventilator that breathed for him. I sank into the chair beside his bed, unsure why I was there, why I couldn't just turn and walk away. We weren't really married anymore, not in the ways that mattered. Just a technicality of paperwork. Where's Vanessa?" I asked the nurse who came to check his vitals. The young woman who was brought in with him. "She left about an hour ago. Said she needed to get some things from home and would be back." The nurse adjusted something on one of the monitors. "Are you his wife?" "Technically." The word tasted bitter. The nurse gave me a look of understanding. "Well, he's lucky you're here. Not everyone would come under the circumstances." I wasn't sure if it was luck or my own masochism. I stayed until morning, watching his chest rise and fall, listening to the steady rhythm of the heart monitor. When his eyelids finally fluttered open, his gaze unfocused and confused, I was the face he saw. "Eliza?" His voice was a rasp, the tube having been removed while I stepped out for coffee. "Don't try to talk," I said, setting my cup aside. "You were in an accident. You're in the hospital." Panic flashed across his face. She's fine." I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. "Minor injuries. She left hours ago. Said she'd be back." Relief washed over his features, followed quickly by shame as he registered my presence and what it meant. That I knew she had been in the car with him. That I knew she had left him here. "I'll get the nurse," I said, standing. "They'll want to know you're awake." His hand shot out, surprisingly strong, gripping my wrist. "Wait, please." I looked down at his fingers against my skin. The same hand that had caressed another woman, made promises to her, chosen her. "I need to let them know you're conscious," I said, gently but firmly removing his hand. I found the nurse, informed her, and then stood in the hallway, torn between leaving and staying. I had no obligation to be there. Our marriage was over. But something kept me rooted to the spot, unable to walk away. When I finally returned to his room, the nurse was finishing her assessment. "You're a lucky man, Mr. Kincaid," she was saying. "The surgeon said if the truck had hit you just a few inches to the right, you wouldn't be here." "When can I go home?" Marcus asked, his voice stronger now. "Not for a while," the nurse replied. You've got a lot of healing to do first. But your wife is here, and your friend should be back soon. A shadow crossed his face. Yes, my friend. After the nurse left, an uncomfortable silence filled the room. You don't have to stay, Marcus finally said. I know you didn't ask for this. No, I didn't. I crossed my arms. But apparently I'm still your emergency contact and still legally responsible for you. You might want to update that, by the way. He had the decency to look ashamed. I meant to. After the papers were signed. Well, they're not signed yet. So here we are. Another silence, heavier this time. Thank you, he said softly, for being here. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Have you heard from Vanessa? His attempt at casualness failed miserably. No. And it's not my job to track down your girlfriend. He winced at the word. She's probably just getting some rest. It was traumatic for her, too. I nearly laughed. I'm sure that's it. The hours stretched on. I called Sophia to explain where I was, called my editor to take a few days off, and settled into an uneasy vigil. Marcus drifted in and out of sleep, the pain medication making him groggy. Each time he woke, his eyes would search the room before finding me, disappointment flickering briefly before he masked it. By evening, there was still no sign of Vanessa. No calls, no messages, no visit. Maybe you should try calling her, I suggested. Not out of kindness, but because I was tired of watching him stare at the door every time it opened. He reached for his phone on the bedside table, wincing with the effort. I handed it to him, noting the dozens of notifications on the screen. He scrolled through them, his expression growing more stricken with each swipe. She's not answering. Leave a message. He did, his voice gentle and reassuring, telling her he was okay, asking her to call him back when she could. The tenderness in his tone was like a knife between my ribs, a reminder of what he had once sounded like when he spoke to me. Night fell. Visiting hours ended, but as his medical proxy, I was allowed to stay. The nurses brought me a reclining chair that unfolded into a narrow cot. I settled in for the night, wondering how this had become my life, sleeping in a hospital room with a husband who loved another woman. Morning arrived with no word from Vanessa. Marcus was quieter now, his attempts to reach her becoming more desperate. I watched from a distance, feeling a complicated mixture of satisfaction and pity. Dr. Imani Ibarra, the attending physician, arrived to check on him. She was a striking woman with intelligent eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. The surgery site looks good, she said after examining him. No signs of infection and your lung function is improving. We'll keep monitoring the internal bleeding, but I'm cautiously optimistic. When can I leave? Marcus asked again. Not for at least a week, Dr. Ibarra replied. And you'll need significant support after discharge. Do you have someone who can help care for you at home? His eyes flicked to me, then away. Yes, I do. I said nothing, letting the lie hang in the air. Dr. Ibarra looked between us, clearly sensing the tension. Well, we'll discuss discharge planning when we're closer to that point. For now, focus on resting and healing. After she left, Marcus stared at the ceiling. She'll come, he said, more to himself than to me. She's probably just scared. Hospitals make her anxious. I knew then that Vanessa wasn't coming back. Something in his voice told me he knew it too. Day 3 arrived with no sign of her. Marcus's phone calls went straight to voicemail now. His text showed as delivered but unread. Maybe you should check the apartment, he suggested, a note of desperation in his voice. Make sure she's okay. I am not going to our home to check on your mistress, I replied flatly. He flinched at the word mistress. Please, Eliza, I'm worried about her. And I was worried about our marriage for months while you were sleeping with her. Funny how that works. His face crumpled. For the first time since I'd known him, Marcus began to cry. Not the dignified single tear of movies, but ugly. Racking sobs that shook his broken body and must have caused him excruciating pain. I stood by the window, watching him fall apart, feeling nothing but a cold detachment. When he finally quieted, he looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. I deserve this, he whispered. I deserve all of it. Yes, I agreed. You do. On the 6th day, a nurse brought in a small box that had been delivered to the front desk. For Mr. Kincaid, she said, setting it on his tray table. I recognized the handwriting on the label immediately, the same looping script that had addressed the Peninsula key card to M with a heart. Marcus tore into the package with his good hand. Inside was my upgraded anniversary ring, the one he'd given Vanessa, along with a folded note. His hands trembled as he opened it. I couldn't see the words from where I stood, but I watched the color drain from his face as he read. When he finished, the paper slipped from his fingers, drifting to the floor. I retrieved it, hesitating only a moment before reading. Marcus, I'm sorry to do this by letter, but I can't face you right now. The accident made me realize how fragile life is and how quickly everything can change. I care for you deeply, but I'm not ready for this level of commitment or complication. Your divorce isn't finalized, and seeing how quickly Eliza came to your side made me understand there are bonds between you two that I can't compete with. I think you still love her, even if you don't realize it. I've accepted a position in our London office effective immediately. Please don't try to contact me again. It's better this way. I'm returning the ring. It was always hers anyway. Take care of yourself. Set the note on the bedside table. London? Impressive. Marcus's laugh was hollow. She's running away, just like that. What did you expect? That she'd play nurse while you recovered? That she'd fight for you? I gave up everything for her, he said, his voice barely audible. Everything. No. I stepped closer to the bed. You gave up everything for yourself, for what you wanted in the moment. Don't make her the villain in your story, Marcus. You chose this. He turned to me, really seeing me for the first time since the accident. Why are you still here, Eliza? After everything I did to you, why haven't you left me too? It was the question I'd been asking myself for days. Why had I stayed? Why couldn't I walk away? Because I made a vow, I finally said. For better or worse, in sickness and in health. And even though you broke yours, I've always believed that integrity means doing the right thing, even when it's hard. Even when the other person doesn't deserve it. I don't deserve you, he whispered. No, you don't. His hand reached for mine, hesitant. I'm so sorry, Liz. I know it doesn't change anything, but I need you to know that. I destroyed something precious because I was selfish and stupid. Yes, you did. If I could go back. But you can't, I interrupted. That's the thing about betrayal, Marcus. You can't undo it. You can't unring that bell. I know. His fingers brushed against mine. I know I can't fix this. But please, please forgive me. Not for my sake, but for yours. So you can move on. Be happy again. I looked down at our almost touching hands at the man I had once believed would never hurt me, now broken in body and spirit. You think my forgiveness is what you need? I asked quietly. You think that's what this is about? I just want... What you want stopped mattering to me the moment I saw you kiss her. My voice was steady, stronger than I felt. My forgiveness isn't yours to ask for. It's mine to give or withhold on my timeline, not yours. He withdrew his hand. You're right. I'm sorry. Stop saying you're sorry. Sorry is just a word. It doesn't fix anything. I moved to the window, looking out at the Chicago skyline, the city where we'd built our life together, the city that now felt both familiar and foreign. Do you know what I've been doing, sitting here watching you for the past week? He shook his head. I've been trying to understand how the man I married, the man I thought I knew better than anyone, could become someone I don't recognize. I've been trying to reconcile the Marcus who looked at me on our wedding day like I was his entire world with the Marcus who could lie to my face for months. I don't have an answer, he said softly, I wish I did. I think you do. I turned to face him. I think you got caught up in the promotion, the power, the status. I think Vanessa represented something new and exciting, an escape from the pressure. I think you convinced yourself you deserved her, deserved more than our simple, steady life together. He didn't deny it. And now she's gone, and you're alone. And suddenly you remember that I exist. I crossed my arms. Suddenly I'm good enough again. It was never about you not being good enough, he protested. You were always too good for me. I just lost sight of that. That's the problem, Marcus. You saw me as this perfect, supportive wife, put me on some pedestal where I couldn't be real or flawed or human. And when the novelty wore off, you looked elsewhere instead of seeing me clearly. He was quiet for a long moment. I didn't just lose sight of your worth, he finally said. I lost sight of mine, of who I wanted to be. A nurse interrupted, coming in to check his vitals and administer medication. We fell into silence as she worked, the beeping monitors the only sound in the room. After she left, Marcus spoke again. The divorce papers, do you still have them? My lawyer does. Will you bring them? Tomorrow? I'll sign them. I studied his face, searching for manipulation or an angle, but saw only resignation and regret. Are you sure that's what you want? No, he admitted. But it's what you deserve. Freedom. A clean break. I nodded slowly. I'll bring them. That night, I stayed in my own apartment for the first time since the accident. The solitude was both a relief and a weight. I called Sophia, pouring out the whole sordid story. So she just left him? Sophia asked, incredulous. After all the drama? After he threw away his marriage for her? Packed up and moved to London. I curled deeper into my couch. Didn't even have the courage to tell him face to face. And how do you feel about that? I considered the question. Vindicated, I guess. But also sad. For him, for me, for what we lost. Are you going back to the hospital tomorrow? Yes, with the divorce papers. Sophia was quiet for a moment. Liz, can I ask you something and promise you won't get mad? Go ahead. Do you still love him? The question hit me like a physical blow. I don't know, I admitted. I hate what he did. I hate how he made me feel, But you spent 11 years with him, Sophia finished. That doesn't just disappear. No, it doesn't. I sighed. But love isn't enough, Soph. Trust matters too. And once that's broken? I know. Her voice was gentle. Just be sure about what you want before you sign those papers. That's all I'm saying. I didn't sleep much that night, turning over Sophia's words, Vanessa's letter, Marcus's apologies. By morning, I wasn't sure what I wanted or what I felt, only that I needed to face it head on. When I arrived at the hospital, divorce papers in hand, Marcus was sitting up in bed. The tube was gone from his chest and some of the monitors had been removed. He looked better, still pale and bruised, but more like himself. Hey, he said when I walked in. Hey. I set my bag down. You look stronger today. Dr. Ibarra says I'm healing faster than expected. He nodded toward the papers in my hand. Are those? Yes. I placed them on his tray table, along with a pen. Everything's filled out. You just need to sign. He took the pen, flipping through the pages to the signature lines marked with small arrows. His hand hovered over the first one. Before I sign these, he said, not looking up, I need to tell you something. Marcus, please, just let me say this. He set the pen down. I know I have no right to ask for another chance. I know I destroyed what we had, and that's on me. But these past few days, watching you care for me despite everything I did to hurt you, it reminded me of who I used to be, who we used to be together. I sat in the chair beside his bed, keeping my expression neutral. I fell for Vanessa because she was new and different, and because I was scared of the responsibility I'd taken on with the promotion. His words came faster now, tumbling out. I told myself it was love, but it wasn't. It was escape. It was cowardice. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve the truth, and because— He took a deep breath. Because I'm still in love with you, Eliza. I never stopped. I just lost my way. The words hung in the air between us, weightier than they had any right to be. You're only saying that because she left you, I said, fighting to keep my voice even. Because you're alone and scared. No. He reached for my hand, and this time I didn't pull away. I'm saying it because it's true. Whether you believe me or not, whether you can ever forgive me or not, I love you. I always have. His fingers were warm against mine, familiar in a way that made my chest ache. Even if that's true, I said quietly, it doesn't change what happened. I know. He squeezed my hand gently. I know it doesn't erase the hurt or rebuild the trust. I know it might be too late. But I needed you to hear it before I signed these papers. I looked at our joined hands, at the man I had once promised forever to, at the remains of a life we had built together. What are you asking for, Marcus? Absolution. Another chance. What? I'm not asking for anything, he said. I'm just telling you the truth. What you do with it is up to you. I withdrew my hand. Sign the papers, Marcus. A shadow passed over his face, but he nodded, picking up the pen again. He signed his name on each marked line, his signature as confident and bold as it had always been, even as he signed away our marriage. When he finished, he handed the stack back to me, our fingers brushing in the exchange. It's done, he said quietly. I placed the papers in my bag, a strange hollowness spreading through my chest. Dr. Abera mentioned discharge planning, I said, changing the subject. Have you figured out where you'll go? The brownstone has a lot of stairs, and with your leg. I haven't thought that far ahead, he admitted. I guess I'll hire a home health aide or something. I nodded, standing to leave. Well, I should go. My lawyer will file these tomorrow. Eliza. His voice stopped me at the door. Thank you. For everything. I turned back to look at him one last time, my almost ex-husband. The man who had been my best friend and my worst betrayer. Goodbye. Marcus! I made it to the elevator before the tears came, hot and unexpected. I pressed the down button repeatedly, willing the doors to open before someone saw me fall apart. When they finally did, I stumbled inside, grateful to find it empty. As the elevator descended, so did my composure. By the time I reached the lobby, I was openly weeping, clutching the handrail for support. I found a quiet corner in the hospital garden, sank onto a bench, and let myself break, really break, for the first time since discovering Marcus's betrayal. Not the controlled tears I'd allowed myself with Sophia, but gut-wrenching sobs that came from somewhere deep and primal. I cried for the marriage we'd had, for the future we'd planned, for the woman I'd been before suspicion and betrayal had hardened me. I cried for Marcus, too, for his weakness, for his regret, for the pain I'd seen in his eyes when he signed those papers. When the storm finally passed, I felt emptied out, scoured clean. I sat there, watching the play of sunlight through the trees, and realized with sudden clarity that I wasn't ready to leave. Not yet. Not like this. There were things I still needed to say, questions I still needed answered, before I could truly close this chapter of my life. I made my way back to the elevators, back to the 5th floor, back to room 317. I paused outside, gathering my courage. Before pushing open the door, Marcus was where I'd left him, staring out the window, the pen still in his hand. When he saw me, confusion and hope warred on his face. I forgot something, I said. What? To ask you a question. I moved closer to the bed. If she came back right now, if Vanessa walked through that door and said she'd made a mistake, that she wanted to be with you after all, what would you do? He didn't hesitate. I'd tell her to leave. Because she hurt you? Because she's not you. His gaze was steady, unflinching. Because I finally see clearly what I've been too blind to recognize. She was never what I wanted. She was just a distraction from my own fears. I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation or desperation, but saw only raw honesty. I don't trust you, I said simply. I know. And I'm still angry. I might be angry for a long time. You have every right to be. I took a deep breath. The divorce papers. I'm not filing them. Not yet. Hope flickered in his eyes. What does that mean? It means I don't know what I want right now. It means I need time to think, to sort through everything that's happened. I moved to the foot of his bed. But it also means I'm not ready to completely close the door on us. Eliza, let me finish. I held up a hand. This isn't a reconciliation. This isn't me taking you back. This is me giving myself permission to process everything without the pressure of a legal deadline. Do you understand? He nodded, silent. When you're discharged, you're going to need help. I know a good rehabilitation facility not far from here. 3 weeks minimum. It will give us both space and time. And after that, we'll see. One day at a time, I crossed my arms. But I need you to understand something, Marcus. If we ever, and it's a big if, try again, it won't be the same marriage. It can't be. Too much has happened. I understand. His voice was thick with emotion. Whatever you decide, whenever you decide it, I'll respect your choice. I nodded, turning to leave again. Eliza? He called after me. I meant what I said before. I love you. Still. Always. I paused at the door, not turning back. I know. That's why this hurts so much. The garden was quieter now, the afternoon shadows lengthening across the paths. I found my bench again and sat, feeling the weight of the unsigned divorce papers in my bag. I didn't know what the future held, whether Marcus and I would find our way back to each other, or if the damage was too deep to repair. But I knew I wasn't ready to surrender to bitterness or close the door on the possibility of healing. Time. That was what I needed. Time to rediscover myself, to decide what I truly wanted, to see if Marcus's remorse was genuine or merely a reaction to abandonment. My phone chimed with a text from Sophia. How did it go? I started to type a response, then stopped, realizing there was no simple answer. Instead, I called her. Hey, she answered on the first ring. Did he sign the papers? He did. I watched a pair of butterflies dance around a nearby flower bed. But I didn't file them. Oh, a pause. Are you okay? No, I admitted. But I think I might be, someday. What happens now? I took a deep breath, feeling something unfurl in my chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but its distant cousin, possibility. Now, I said, we heal.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.